Yo, what up? My name is Don. I am a full time content creator and streamer. And today I want to talk about the idea of being genuine or sincere, especially in the social media world. And so I wanted to highlight some of the issues that can come up, as well as give some tips to not feel like doing those things comes off so forced and fake. So, with that being said, let's hop right in. Okay, so being a full time streamer and content creator, of course, I spend a lot of time online, like many of us do. I spend a lot of time on Twitter and other social media, but mostly on things like Twitter and Discord, where you interact, in real time. As opposed to things like YouTube. I mean, yes, you interact in real time, but I'm not always there on YouTube, like answering my comments or replying to my comments, right then and there. Discord and Twitter feel like things that are just very on all the time. Even though, the YouTube app is just on my phone as much as the Twitter app, for some reason, things like Twitter and Discord just feel much more instant in terms of the interaction. And so I just want to highlight some of the things that I run into on a daily basis when it comes to platforms like that, those specific ones, which, a lot of creators are, I guess, doing things that they may not realize or can come off disingenuous or insincere. And I feel like a lot of them are doing it out of ignorance. And I'm not saying ignorance as a rude thing. I'm saying ignorance as they don't know any better. Like they don't actually know that they're doing something that is disingenuous and or insincere. When people are considering how to connect with other streamers and how to achieve things like growth in this space, they often adopt habits that seem to be the norm or can even be fads that come about strategically, that they just latch onto because they're trying to do what everybody's trying to do, which is just grow in the space, which is 10 times harder to do now than it was, again, more than 10 years ago when I started live streaming. So I just have some point notes here, which are in no particular order. And these are some of the things off the top of my head that I've run into in like the past week. And I don't think anybody is doing these things for the most part. I don't think most people are doing these things with any malice or any maliciousness in their mind when they're doing it. I just think that through a bit more education and bringing things into the limelight and at least talking about them, a lot of creators can learn how to um, better, I guess, just do things in a way that feels, in the end, more wholesome, more genuine, more sincere, and benefits both them as a creator in the long term and the person that they're interacting with. So, one of those things, for example, is following people on social media just for follow's sake or because others are doing it. This is something that, again, I'm growing all the time on social media. I'm getting followers here and there, but you can never control when or what the reasons are for people following you. So I always just hope that people are following me because they actually like my content, because they actually like what I have to say. Or when it comes to things like Twitter, more specifically, they like what they are seeing on my timeline when they come to my page. When it comes to me following people back, and this kind of leads into the second half of this whole situation I'm trying to frame, which again is following people on social media just for follow's sake or because others are doing it. The other side of that is then being mad for not getting a follow back, right? And I think that I see this happen not even just in the past week, but over the past year. Especially, I've seen it happen a lot. If you're attached to watching streamers at all, or you're in the streamer space, or you know anything about streamer world at all, um, Kick streaming is celebrated. They must be a year and a couple months old now. I'm not sure. I think they're approaching maybe a year and a half old now, maybe in a month or two or something like that. And a lot of people kind of did this thing where, as Kick was growing as a platform, you're seeing all sorts of people connect and, getting mad at each other because so and so is using so and so said this about so and so, or, A person is angry at B person, and now B person is not allowed in the group with A person and the rest of the clique now. And, there's just a lot of animosity that happens. And I feel like it's due to a lot of the misunderstanding that could be clarified very easily if people just from the get go had better education about how they approached networking and growth from the start. So, the following people on social media just for follow's sake or because others are doing it, when it comes, I can only speak for myself, right? And so I think that when I get a large group of people following me, um, you know, generally I can tell the reason why it happened. I made, for example, like if you made a big post and it got a lot of views and a lot of likes and blah blah blah, there may be a small percentage of those people that go over to your profile and hit the follow button. Recently, I just um, partnered up with another company for a sponsor, like a sponsor for me. And in doing so, a lot of the other people decided to follow me on social media. Now, while there's nothing essentially wrong with that, the part that worries me is the um, stories that people like to make, or the assumptions that turn into stories that people like to make without having the other half of it. For example, a lot of people do this thing where if, you know, they follow you, and just because you're in the same space, they're a content creator. Or well, they're a streamer, I should say. I can't say content creator because there's a lot of people, and I'm going to hit on this again in a couple minutes. There's a lot of people who call themselves content creators without actually making any content, which is the number one reason why I will not follow you. Um, so, you know, I will look into a lot of these other people's profiles who follow me, and if I'm not if I don't see a lot of the things I'm looking for, which is um, genuine content. When it comes to genuine content, all I mean is like content that they made themselves. So I don't care if it's like you know, another video where I've already seen 1,000 type that video. As long as they put their own effort into it, they made it with their own content. Whatever, that's cool. I want to see basically that person's personality and what they do. So, I don't really follow people back who, for example, are only reposting things all the time, or the people who only, a lot of people know this. There are people who only ask questions all the time. They're always basically their whole Twitter is a giant prompt. They're just always prompting you or asking you something, and that's the way that they get interaction. And I think that, just the way that I mean, I don't want to make this a video complaining about the way Twitter is now. Back in my day, but the way it is now, there's so much engagement farming, and I think that the way that this has leaked into streamer land or content creator land, it makes people think that this is the best way to grow or the most genuine way to grow. And while it may be in some cases the easy route, using people or just following people when it's popular, or just following brands when it's popular, or just posting about certain things when it's popular, or whatever it is, that can work for some people. I feel like uh, I can't imagine that it's a good feeling in the end. I can't feel that that's a wholesome feeling. And so far for me, you know, um, I only want people to follow me if they actually like my personality and what I'm saying and what I'm putting out there. And it's the same quid pro quo, right? The same as I want to be treated is the same that I will treat people. So I do not want to follow people, like I said, if they are not putting any of if they're just not creating anything, right? They have to be creating something for me. This is kind of beside this next point I want to make of following brands or vouching for people just because it's the popular to do, especially the vouching for people part. You'll see this a lot where creators, and this goes into, and this is harder to detect or whatever. This is something where it seems like, you know, it's really hard to make a case about this publicly on any specific person. For example, if somebody is going for a sponsorship for a company and they post publicly on Twitter, the company posts like, "Hey, who wants to be partnered or whatever?" And person A posts, "Oh, I would love to be," whatever. And you may see other creators under that. What It's hard to tell who's genuine or not, because it's not like you're going to go into their entire post history and look at all the interactions and go, "Yeah, that looks real. That doesn't look real." But it does happen. There are people who will just try to get into others creators good books, and get on their good side, and you know uh essentially use them for, and it happens all the way up to, it can be like use them for their viewers, use them for their platform, And sometimes it gets as bad as use them for their connections to the industry. And that can go, as far as sponsorships, affiliate sponsorships, and all the different levels of them from affiliate to partnership, or straight up to jobs and getting your foot in the door. Unfortunately, that is a really crummy side of things, but it does happen. And like I said, this can't feel wholesome or good at the end of the day. So I don't know why people do it, and I get it. The whole, you know, it's like when the gold's shown to you, right, and the gold's right in front of your face, when the power is right in front of your face, and you could have it all. It's so enticing, but I feel like that's going to be a very short-lived route for a lot of people because they're not sure how to even manage the growth if they do happen to, if their wheels start to hook and they get some traction. A lot of people just burn out because they don't actually know how to handle things at that level because they didn't earn it genuinely, as in they didn't ramp up to that scale. You know what I'm saying? So, next is I mentioned this already, calling themselves content creators without actually making any content. There's a lot of people like this, and again, that's the number one reason why I won't follow them. Um, it pains me to see a lot of creators call themselves, or a lot of streamers call themselves content creators when they, haven't put out a video in, say, the last, there's no, I don't have a hard line for whatever, but let's just say 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year. The more we go, the more it gets a little bit more ridiculous how they're still calling themselves content creators and still branding themselves at that when they're not actually doing the work, and the only person that they're hurting is themselves. They're not hurting anybody else by claiming that they're a content creator. So I don't really have a problem with it at the end of the day, right? It's not affecting anything I do, but it's a giant self-reflection. It's almost like it's almost like a cry for help. It's like they want to be a content creator, but for some reason something is blocking them. And in some situations, I've seen it for some people. I almost feel bad for them, where I just want to ask them, like, what's going on? Like, how can we get your wheels? How can we get that traction going for you? Because I don't really understand why you decide to lie to yourself. Why do you decide to disrespect yourself that much, and attach this label to yourself that you're not actually doing the work to live up to? Um, you know, this I've seen situations where this is going off the people calling themselves content creators and not making any content. This goes into other branches of conversation. Like, if you make content, you in making content, you are building yourself a content library. With that content library, you're building fans. With that fan base, you can open up opportunities for yourself, like sponsors and blah blah blah. And if you really do want to be a content creator, at the core of it, you want to be a business person. In my mind, I mean, there's going to be a point where if you're doing your hobby to like 110%, I feel like there's a point where it just eventually turns into business, because if you're actually putting that much passion and time into it, it's going to take up all your time and eventually just become your business, because that's like the natural progression of things. Even if you don't treat it like a business, like what you're doing is so much fun that you don't feel like you're doing business, at the end of the day, you're still doing business, right? So I've seen situations where people want to call themselves content creators and stuff like that. And on the live stream side of things, they're getting hundreds of subs a month, um, and yet they're making posts on Twitter, on text-based social media, that they're not making enough money. And I sit here thinking, well, if you are the content creator that you said you were, then, seeing as how YouTube works, kind of like a snowball, like if you're putting the effort in and you're consistent, and consistency is the hardest thing to do when you work for yourself. So, whether you're just streaming right now to grow as a hobbyist, you still have to put in the same work ethic that you would at the same type of work ethic that you would at a regular job. At a regular job, you're simply committed to that job. If you don't stay committed, you get fired. You don't stay committed, you don't get money, right? Well, when you're trying to grow something, whether it's a 9 to 5 paycheck, like whatever your paycheck is, or you're trying to grow your following on social media, or it turns into that business, that natural progression. It turns into that business for you, where okay, now your following and your numbers and blah blah is attached to your income, and you're trying to take care of all of it, which is essentially what you'd be doing if you owned the business that you worked for. So instead of being an employee, if you were the boss, same thing, right? your followers, you could switch them to just be your employees. You need more employees, you need more growth, you need more location, you need more business, marketing, blah blah blah. It's just the natural flow of things. So, um, it's confusing to me how if you were a content creator, how you would have I guess, when the post reads like I'm not getting enough subs, to me that means you're putting more pressure on your audience. And at that point, I'm like, okay, so what are we? Are we a content creator? Are we streamer? Are we just, like a beggar in disguise? You get what I'm saying? Like, what are we actually doing here? So, um, the third point I have on that is not putting in the effort to have content for brands, then being mad that they aren't looked at. I've seen posts like this. It's kind of crazy to me that a lot of creators or streamers or people in this social media world feel entitled, where um, they feel like the world is picking on them, or they feel like they're being bullied, or they feel like, um, I guess that everything's against them just because, a brand's not looking at them. And again, that comes back to the fact that they, I guess, just don't understand being a byproduct of the fact that they don't make content, that they don't understand the value of that content. They don't understand the value of themselves as the face of the brand, or even as a hobbyist, you are the face of your little hobby brand. Whatever your alias is online. Like mine is Ken Has Bucket or I Has a Bucket on Twitch, right? That's who I am online. So I am the face of that, and if I want my name to be attached to these brands and stuff like that, I got to be putting out content that they get value from. The same way that I want to hook up with certain brands. Like, well, I don't just do it just to have a brand attached to my name. So some people do that. I do it because, um, and I've turned down brands. I'm not a giant creator, right? It's not like I act all high and mighty, but I've kind of said thank you for the offer, but no thank you. And it's because the value in what they're offering me doesn't align with what I'm doing, or the message that I want to put out, or the vision that I have, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So again, I just feel like if people were, one, going back to the main point of this video, genuine and sincere about, I think it goes in a couple steps. Like, first, you have to have the vision of what you want, right? Once you have the vision, you start to create a plan. And in creating a plan, you're going to run into all these barriers and road bumps and things that, you know, are going to test you essentially. Um, and I think that's where the willpower, the persistence part comes in. And all these things are ingredients in the whole, uh, I guess, umbrella of being a content creator. And in this space specifically, that also falls into the umbrella of genuinely putting an effort to being a content creator. So I personally am a little bit tired of people calling themselves, content creators when they're not actually putting in the effort to do that. Lastly, for any streamers and content creators, I think that, this kind of touches on the whole growth side of things. I always raise an eyebrow when it comes to companies or teams or networks, on Twitter, that are doing two things. One is, they are making groups that are meant to push your social media. So I'm not sure. Again, and I'll go back to the Kick example. There are a lot of Twitter pages on Kick that are like Kick streamer growth, like that's the account name, right? And thousands of people following it think that for some reason this is going to help them grow. And when this account posts things like, if Kick or X platform, like whatever platform it is, if whatever platform paid you blah 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 dollars an hour, would you take it? And these creators are so sucked up with they're stuck on step one. They're so wrapped up in the vision of what they want, they're forgetting about every other step that it takes to circle back to step one, right? It really is a circular process. And if they would put in the effort to get to each step, each point on that circle, they would, first of all, not have to feel bad at any part of the process, and they'd be able to complete, their process and fulfill their vision a lot sooner than they would have imagined. which is something that I can say has been happening to me a little bit lately, and I feel absolutely blessed. So all I can say is put the work in. I've been streaming for 15 years now, and this isn't like a flex or anything. This is just to say that to any new creators, don't get sucked up in the idea that you have to even follow like a bigger creator because they followed you. If you don't like their content, don't follow them. Be sincere to yourself. Be sincere to your message because I am telling you from experience, and there are other creators who are bigger than me that will tell you the same thing, that have stuck to their own values and their own genuine and sincere vision, that your numbers don't matter. They are a benefit to you and they will help open up more opportunities for you. But who you are as a person is the most important thing into your growth as a streamer, your growth as a brand. If you're looking at this from from a business perspective and have a business mindset about it all, and your ability to connect with all the brands, businesses, and sponsors and opportunities that you want to. So that is it for me. I just think people need to take a step back and think about what they're doing a little bit more, and not create all these assumptions and extra dialogues and stories that they come up with by themselves. That essentially just makes them disappointed. It doesn't really affect anybody else. So I think that is something that's not talked about enough in the content creator space, and I think it's like this like mental plague that just goes around affecting everybody here and there. And I'm interested in even doing some Twitter Spaces talks on things like this and inviting other content creators. And if you guys want to be a part of those, definitely follow me on Twitter. My socials are somewhere around on the YouTube here, and let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, especially if you are a streamer and or content creator yourself. Even if you disagree, let me know what you think. And as always, if you like content like this and want more, as always, like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one.